In the vast rolling plains of the Oklahoma Territory, 1914, there was a farm that seemed to stretch endlessly under the wide open sky. The land was fertile but wild, the wind unrelenting, and the nights long and lonely. On this isolated plot lived Eli Harper, a 42-year-old widower, whose once lively eyes had dimmed under the weight of sorrow and labor. By his side was his only child, Maggie, a curious and spirited 12-year-old with her mother's bright smile and her father's stubborn determination. Life was a struggle. Each day, Eli rose before dawn, hauling water from the well, tending the fields, and repairing fences that the prairie wind often tore down. Maggie helped when she could, though her small hands ached from chores meant for a grown man. Yet, in the quiet moments, she wandered beyond the farm's borders to the edge of the woods where crows gathered in ominous black clusters, their sharp eyes watching, seemingly aware of every movement. One crisp autumn evening, as the harvest sun dipped beneath the horizon in fiery streaks of orange and red, Maggie's attention was drawn to a glint among the tall wheat. Kneeling, she uncovered a tarnished silver locket, its delicate clasp rusted but still intact. Her breath caught. She held it up to the fading sunlight. The locket seemed to hum with mystery. By the flickering lantern light inside the small farmhouse, Maggie opened the locket carefully. Inside was a tiny portrait of a young woman with soft, delicate features and a lock of auburn hair tucked beside it. "Where did you find this, Maggie?" Eli asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and weariness. "In the grass, near the edge of the cornfield," she replied. "It looked like it was waiting for me." Eli turned the locket over in his hands, frowning. "This doesn't belong to anyone we know. Maybe someone lost it years ago." Yet even as he spoke, there was an unspoken sense of wonder between them. That night, as the wind moaned across the prairie, the locket caught the moonlight. Maggie placed it beside her bed, feeling an inexplicable connection to the long-forgotten owner. A week later, the skies darkened with crows. They came in vast flocks, circling the farmhouse and perching along fences, rooftops, and the bare branches of ancient oak trees. Maggie noticed an eerie pattern. The birds always appeared at dawn, their caws sharp and urgent, like a chorus speaking in a language she almost understood. One morning, she stepped out to the frost-covered field, and a crow dropped something shiny at her feet, a small gold ring glinting in the early light. "Daddy, look!" she called. Eli bent down, squinting. "Crows don't bring gifts," he muttered, disbelief etched across his weathered face. Yet there it was, a perfect, delicate ring. The crows didn't scatter. They lingered, observing. Maggie felt a shiver of awe. "I think they're trying to tell us something," she whispered. Days turned into weeks, and the crows' gifts multiplied. Earrings tangled in the wheat, brooches glinting on fence posts, and even a silver bracelet laid atop a stone near the barn. Each object seemed older than the last, worn with age but remarkably intact. Eli grew anxious. "We don't know where these came from. Someone might think we're taking them." Maggie's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Maybe they're gifts for people who never got them back," she suggested. "Maybe the crows know." For the first time in years, Eli allowed himself to wonder. Perhaps there was magic on the prairie after all, not the kind written in books, but quiet, mysterious, and alive, circling overhead with dark wings. One afternoon, as Eli repaired a broken fence post, a rider approached on a dusty horse. He was tall, his coat long and black, and his piercing green eyes seemed to see into the very soul of the land. "I hear your crows have been busy," the man said, tipping his hat. "I'm Mr. Whitlock, a collector of lost things. I follow rumors of treasures that the wind carries." Eli's brow furrowed. And you expect me to believe crows are delivering treasures to our farm? Whitlock smiled, enigmatic. Not the crows themselves, but perhaps their instincts lead them to what was lost. They sense energy, history, and longing. Maggie clutched the locket in her hand. You think the crows know where things belong? Whitlock nodded slowly. Sometimes, little girl, sometimes. The world is more connected than we realize. Whitlock revealed the stories of the land rush decades earlier. Settlers buried family jewelry, heirlooms, and keepsakes for safekeeping. Many of these treasures were lost, stolen, or forgotten. Crows, he said, have an uncanny ability to find shiny objects. They follow memory, instinct, and the history embedded in the earth. Maggie's eyes widened. So the crows are returning treasures? Whitlock gave a half smile. Maybe. Or perhaps they are testing hearts. Only those with kindness and patience can truly receive what they bring. Eli listened, skeptical, but Maggie felt a thrill of possibility, a promise that there was more to the world than toil and survival. The gifts continued, but Eli grew wary. We can't just take them for ourselves, he muttered, pacing. Someone could claim them as theirs. Maggie insisted on keeping a journal. Every gift was sketched, dated, and described. She recorded the location, shape, and even the way the light caught each piece. Eli observed her diligence, gradually understanding. The crows were teaching them patience, honesty, and reverence, values he realized had slipped from his hands during years of hardship. Word spread quickly through the territory. Farmers, travelers, and curious neighbors came to witness the phenomenon. Maggie became known as the girl who speaks to crows. But not all visitors were kind. Some eyed the treasures with envy, plotting ways to claim them. Maggie sensed the malice in certain glances, and Eli's protective instincts flared. Yet, as more people came, the farm began to feel alive in a way it never had before, filled with wonder, stories, and shared curiosity. One evening, Eli noticed movement along the wheat's edge. A man crept toward the pile of treasures Maggie had gathered, intent on taking something. Eli gripped his rifle, ready to confront him. But Maggie ran ahead, small but fearless. "Why are you taking these things?" she asked, voice trembling but firm. The man hesitated. I lost my family in the land rush. These were their keepsakes. I thought—" His voice broke. "I thought maybe I could reclaim a piece of them." Eli stepped back, unsure what to do. Maggie's eyes softened. Maggie extended her hand to the man. "These treasures aren't ours," she said gently. "The crows brought them here to remind us to care for the past, not take it for ourselves." Tears glistened in the man's eyes. Eli lowered his rifle. "She's right," he said. "There's more to these gifts than gold or silver." That night, Eli and Maggie reflected on the lesson they'd learned. Life isn't about possession. It's about kindness, forgiveness, and the small acts of love that bind generations together. Spring arrived with a gentle breeze, carrying the scent of thawing earth. One morning, Mr. Whitlock returned, his satchel heavy with treasures, each piece worn with age, each telling a story of a life long forgotten. "These belong to families who never recovered them," he said softly, placing delicate rings, brooches, and lockets on the farmhouse table. "Some were stolen, others buried and forgotten. The crows, they have a way of returning what's lost to those with hearts open enough to receive it." Maggie's fingers trembled as she touched a tiny silver ring engraved with initials HM. Whitlock explained, "This was buried by a young girl in 1898, long before the land rush claimed her family. She never saw her brother again. The crows found it and it ended up here." Maggie whispered, eyes wide. They're bringing stories, not just jewelry. Winter settled over the farm, wrapping the land in a blanket of snow. The crows became scarce, but their lessons lingered in the quiet farmhouse. Maggie and Eli spent evenings by the fire, telling stories of the past, of their ancestors, of settlers lost to the land rush, and of the fleeting nature of material wealth. Eli, usually reserved, began speaking of Maggie's mother, sharing memories he had never voiced aloud. Maggie listened with rapt attention, filling the silence with questions, laughter, and the occasional tear. The locket, the rings, the scattered treasures. They had become symbols of connection, binding the past and present together. As spring painted the prairie green, Whitlock appeared once more. "The crows are nearing the end of their deliveries," he said, his voice soft but serious. "But there is one final gift. It requires courage, patience, and a heart open to wonder." Maggie's pulse quickened. "A final gift?" she asked. "What could it be?" Whitlock's gaze swept across the farm. "Sometimes, the greatest treasures are not objects, but truths. The crows will show you something invaluable, something that cannot be taken or stolen." Eli watched Maggie's anticipation with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Whatever this final gift was, it was clear their lives were about to change forever. On the first morning of spring, Maggie ran to the fence at dawn, the frost sparkling in the new sunlight. A lone crow descended from the sky, carrying a small velvet pouch in its talons. Inside were two simple gold rings engraved with names, Eli and Margaret Harper. Eli's hands trembled as he read them aloud. "Our names," he whispered, disbelief and awe mingling in his voice. Maggie hugged him tightly. "It's not about where they came from," she said softly. "It's about reminding us that love, family, and memory are the real treasures." Whitlock appeared silently behind them. "The crows don't just return what was lost," he said. "Sometimes they give back what was never truly gone, the love we carry in our hearts." Eli finally understood. The crows' gifts had not been merely shiny objects, they were lessons. They reminded him to cherish his daughter, honor the memory of his wife, and recognize the invisible threads connecting past and present. Maggie smiled, realizing that these small, forgotten objects had awakened a larger understanding, that the treasures of life are intangible. They are patience, compassion, and the bonds we nurture with others. Whitlock mounted his horse, tipping his hat. "Your hearts were always ready," he said, disappearing into the prairie mist. The crows began to disperse, their flocks thinning as they returned to the skies. Maggie waved, whispering thanks for each gift, each lesson. Eli, standing beside her, felt a deep peace he had not known in years. The farm was no longer lonely or harsh. It hummed with memory, magic, and quiet understanding. From that day on, the prairie felt alive in a new way. The wind seemed to carry stories, and the shadows of the crows reminded them of the lessons etched into every blade of wheat. As word of the crows and the gifts spread, the community began visiting Eli and Maggie's farm not just to witness strange events, but to learn from them. People left inspired, carrying lessons of patience, kindness, and respect for history back to their own homes. Eli shared the story openly, speaking of courage, honesty, and the value of intangible treasures. Maggie taught the children of the territory to care for animals, respect the land, and honor the memories of those who had come before. The farm became a sanctuary, a place of reflection, hope, and learning. Years passed, and Maggie grew into a wise, compassionate woman. She managed the farm alongside Eli until his peaceful passing, ensuring the land remained alive with lessons of the past. The journal she had kept of every crow-delivered gift became a treasured record. Travelers and neighbors alike visited to hear the stories of the jewelry, the history it represented, and the lessons it imparted. Maggie's legacy was clear. She transformed a farm into a living testament to connection, love, and integrity. One spring morning, a letter arrived, addressed to Maggie in careful handwriting. It was from the descendants of the young girl in the locket, the one discovered so long ago. Inside was a photograph of their family, smiling warmly, along with a note. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. Because of your care, her story has not been forgotten. Maggie held the letter close, tears streaming. The crows had not only returned jewelry, they had restored history, connected generations, and reminded the world that even small acts of attention and kindness carry monumental meaning. The farm remained as the years passed, silent but full of life. The wheat swayed under wide open skies. The wind whispered ancient secrets, and crows occasionally circled overhead. Travelers would claim they saw the birds carrying small, shining objects, reminders that magic, patience, and care endure beyond time. Maggie's story became legend, a testament to the power of love, honesty, and the subtle ways life rewards those who act with integrity. Even as Oklahoma grew into a state, the farm on the edge of the prairie retained its quiet magic, proving that sometimes the smallest hearts leave the largest footprints.